problem of stubble, problem of all this waste which is being burnt can be turned into something really revolutionary. So Madhur is going to elaborate more on this. And so here is Prem Jha. He's changed his schedule just to be with us here. And who's the other?
So as Rahul sort of took some of my words away from me, please do stay for this next session. It may be last, but is by no means the least and is really, really important. In fact, we keep talking about ecology and climate change and sustainability, but we also keep wondering whether, is anything actually being done? Is any change really happening? And I was really heartened in the session before lunch when Gillian said, yes, it's being monitored and there are mitigating things that can be done. So there is hope. So we have two authors, and I will tell you in a minute about their books. Sandip Bhammer, would you come in please onto the stage? Here you are. He is the founder and managing partner, let me get this right, Green Frontier Capital, which is a leading India-focused climate tech venture firm. And his book is called India's Green Startups, and it tells us about the things that are being done through the stories of 14 pioneering people who did startup businesses. And as Rahul mentioned, Prem Shankar Jha, who absolutely needs no introduction. He's an old favorite at KSLF. In fact, those of you who were here yesterday will have heard him already. And Rahul, again, has already stolen my thunder by telling you that he has this book called Sun, Wind and Biomass, which he wrote together with Michael McElroy. Right. So these are the two books under discussion. And talking to them is our very own Madhur Singh, who, and maybe she will tell you about it, is herself in this eco space. Right. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Serena. Can I just request everyone to please take a seat at the back? It gets very distracting when people are trying to listen in and others are laughing and cracking jokes. Please, can I request you to sit down? Pooja can go towards the left and sign autographs and take selfies.
Can I also add to that? I'm actually going to talk to you about a very interesting subject that would want to make you live, which is making money. So if you want to hear how to make money, then pay attention.
Thanks, Sandip. We really appreciate all of you for staying back. We know everybody wants to be the early bird that's beating traffic, but when you're stuck in traffic, you are the traffic. So all of them who've left to be the early birds are probably the early worm that the bird is going to catch. So thank you for staying back, friends of KSLF. It's actually a very, very interesting and very appropriate place to be sitting, to be having a discussion on climate change. We've had a series of climate disasters this year in Himachal, of course, Uttarakhand, Punjab. We've had floods and cloudbursts in quick succession. And the papers have been filled with news about the climate crisis. At the same time, I would posit that there are a lot of climate solutions that are at hand, that are viable, that are in the market, way beyond proof of concept, and yet they're not being talked about as much. So this is what we're going to try and attempt to do in this session, because both of our panelists today have written books about solutions to the climate crisis. On my left is Sandip Bhammer, who is, as Serena said, managing editor of Green Frontier Capital. The book is actually going to be made into a series for Disney Hotstar. So it's heartening to know that the climate crisis and climate solutions are going to be more mainstreamed and more front of people's minds than they have been in the last many decades. On my right, of course, is veteran journalist Prem Shankar Jha. His book is about sun, wind, and biomass. As the future of energy, India's path to a sustainable future, he insists that I mention. Thank you, Prem. I'm going to let them talk a little bit about their books. So if I were to request you to tell a 20-year-old who knows nothing about climate tech what your book is about, how would you do it? Briefly, please.
Yeah, I'll try and be as brief as possible. First of all, I want to thank KSLF for giving me the opportunity. Climate is one of the greatest existential crises that humanity faces today. And India, being the largest, fastest growing economy, is going to have the largest amount of greenhouse gas emissions. And therefore, it's very important that India play a very pivotal and important role if we have to actually address this Western climate narrative of climate change, which until very recently was not even being talked about in India. And the purpose of my book really was to say that climate change should not be a Western narrative, because there are some really interesting young entrepreneurs in India, mainly in tier 2 cities with no access to capital, that are doing some really innovative things to address climate change in an affordable and an inclusive way, in a manner that can be scaled rapidly. And the whole idea of my book is to tell the stories of these entrepreneurs. We looked at about 70 entrepreneurs, so there's an entire host of a pipeline of entrepreneurs that we haven't covered in our book, so maybe that's a volume 2. But the volume 1 is essentially focused on some really interesting, fearless individuals who've given up formal careers to do something that they love, without knowing that they're actually addressing climate. So their aim for starting their businesses was not to address climate, but in the process of doing what they love the most, they're actually doing something for the climate. And I can talk more about what those situations are.
Great. Thank you for keeping it brief. That's a good introduction. Thanks. Over to you.
Thank you, Sandip. I'm delighted to see that there are as many as 70 people who are looking at this and actually investing in things that will help us with climate change, because it's, to me, the most important subject in the world today. Before I start, I just want to briefly pay my what should I say, respects or give due credit to my co-author, Professor Michael McElroy at Harvard. I've been a visiting fellow there for the last 5-6 years, and we worked on this book in spite of COVID. And he has been a very, I'm sorry, it always happens to me, my hand starts falling down. He has been a major figure in the field of climate change studies, particularly in China. And then, because we met about 8-9 years ago over another book I'd written, he said, why don't you come and work with us? The subject, as Madhur said, is how does India get out of the climate change problem? But that is only a very small part of this book. The theme of this book is that we have the world is facing two insurmountable problems at the moment. The first is that global warming, in spite of all the talk, all the hoo-ha, the thousands of the green magazines that are around, is accelerating. I just want to give you some figures very briefly. Between 1940, more or less the end of the Second World War, let's say 45, and 1970, the annual increase in carbon in the air, carbon dioxide in the air, was 0.17%. Between 1970 and 2000, it went up to 0.34%. And today, between 2000 and 2024, it has gone up now to 56%, 0.56%. So the rate at which we are adding carbon dioxide into the air is actually accelerating in spite of everything that is being done today and all the promises that have been made at the Glasgow summit and at other places. A major reason for this is, first of all, that all the technologies that are being talked about today, the main ones are solar photovoltaic and wind energy, and to a small extent now, and I'm glad to say rising, solar thermal energy, but basically solar and wind energy. The trouble with both of these is, first, they're not in your control. You never know when you'll have the wind, even the sun, when clouds will come, when they will not come, etc. And the average amount of time in the year in which your solar and wind energy is available is less than 1/3 of the hours of the year. So the question then is, how do you meet the electricity needs in the remaining 2/3? And also, how do you ensure that the electricity is available to all of us as much as we want and when we want at the precise moment we want? There is no answer to this at this moment. All the solutions that are being talked about, green hydrogen via electrolysis of water and so on, are prohibitively expensive. I'm not going to go into it just now. And there's no chance of their coming down before the 2060 deadline that the IPCC has said that if you do not get down carbon, you get net zero in carbon emissions by then the world is in for 3.5% rise in temperature by the end of the century, which will actually be pretty much the end of humanity. So now, that's one problem. The second problem is, that is the problem that the developed countries face. Their growth has already, shall we say, tabled around 1970, 1980. They have only one problem. How do you get out of fossil fuels into non-fossil fuels? And I've told you they're making very little progress. We in the developing countries have a much bigger problem. We have to keep growing. And we have to keep growing and at the same time shift out of fossil fuels. So far it's been considered absolutely impossible without huge amounts of aid from the rich nations, and that aid has not been coming. And every single annual conference of the Conference of Parties to the Kyoto Protocol has now become a slanging match with no further development taking place. This book actually shows you, and I'm not exaggerating, please believe me, read it and tell me afterwards if anybody finds that the statement I'm going to make is not correct or that I'm exaggerating, please write to me and actually, please, put a police case against me for misleading people, all right? This book tells you how with the right choice of technologies and the right combination of technologies, you can get 24 hours power. Not only that, but also what nobody is even talking about today is how do you switch out of transport fuels. Electricity is only 30% of total consumption. Transport fuels is another 30%, and industrial heat is 40%. And no one has the faintest idea how to get out of transport or industrial heat from fossil fuels. This book gives you the answer to all three. And the basic thing we start with is that the right connection, if you like, of renewable energies is not solar and wind alone, but solar and wind combined with biomass. The key ingredient is biomass. Why? Because the world has, at this moment, produces between 10 and 14 billion tons of crop residues and forestry residues. We don't know what to do with it. In India, we are burning the parali, as you know, and it's become a huge problem, but that's not the only problem. There's another form of biomass which we have no idea what to do with, which is municipal solid waste. And the world is producing about 1 billion tons of municipal solid waste. I'm going to stop here because I think I must give my poor thing a chance, and please take your time. We have the last session.
Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Prem. That segues nicely into two questions, actually. The first is, do we need aid? The second is, what are some of the technologies that you have written about? And what would you say to this point that Prem has just made? That
I have a lot of things to say in terms of what he said, but let me just share with you that we invest capital in India from the United States. And the job of a venture capitalist is to actually de-risk an innovative solution that has not been proven yet. The reason why Indian companies don't get a lot of aid from abroad is that the kind of projects that we're talking about are binary outcome projects. They are 1 and 0 projects. and they require a lot of capital. And folks from abroad find it very difficult to justify backing science projects in countries that are still looked at as being sort of the Wild West. And unfortunately, as much as I would like to say that India is one of the largest, fastest growing economies in the world, in the US, the kind of risk premiums that we put for investment in India is very, very high. So the only way that capital will flow to India is if the opportunity is scalable, if the impact metrics are visible, and where the chances of success for those projects are relatively high. Therefore, when you talk about areas like energy transition, which is largely a government policy ecosystem opportunity, there's a lot of nervousness around it because you don't know whether the unit economics of those businesses make sense or not. Anyone here ever used Blue Smart in Delhi? It, unfortunately, you know, as the business was excellent, but because of a corporate governance issue, the company shut down. But the company really scaled very rapidly over the last 3 years. It had a 10x growth in fleet, and people in Delhi started using Blue Smart and forgot about Uber. And the reason why they did that is because it was a strong consumer-facing business. The unit economics made sense, and people kept throwing money at it. And it was very, very close to becoming, you know, a break-even business, and possibly even a decacorn. It's unfortunate what happened, but the fact of the matter is it's businesses like Blue Smart, it's businesses like NutriFresh. It's another great business that we've invested in. People now in India want access to high-quality produce consistently when they want it. So investing in a business that has controlled environment agriculture as its main focus enables the business to scale because of the fact that organized retail as an opportunity in India is taking off in a big way. So people are no longer buying fruits and vegetables curbside in India. They're willing to pay a premium for products as long as they get them when they want them. When you go into a Reliance Fresh or a Nature's Basket, why is it that you're willing to pay a premium there? Because you know that when you go there, you get the product that you want and the quality that you want. But unfortunately, in India, there's a very unique situation. I actually know NRIs who time their visits to India in summer so that they can eat mangoes in India. On the other hand, I'm eating mangoes in winter when it's snowing in New York. So obviously, there's something wrong with the manner in which India is set up, which does not allow people to get fresh produce as and when they want it. Controlled environment agriculture is a very unique way of helping solve for part of the climate crisis because it's basically it involves rainwater reharvesting, it's soilless, and you can actually power these controlled environment agriculture projects with solar panels. And so there are businesses that we invest in which don't depend on government policy, which have positive unit economics, and where consumer scalability opportunities are extremely high. So what are some of the areas that we've invested in? We've invested in areas like electrical vehicles and electrical vehicle ecosystem. So businesses that finance vehicles in the EV ecosystem, manufacturers of vehicles, battery swapping businesses. You know, that's another great area for investment in India. In charging infrastructure in India, India is one of the few countries in the world where you don't need to set up charging infrastructure for EVs to take off. And you know the reason for that? The reason for that is most of the EV usage pivot is going to take place in two-wheelers and three-wheelers, where you don't need to bring in the vehicle into a charging station and spend hours changing the batteries, which is basically a problem with a four-wheeler company. In India, you can use the local kirana wala to basically have pre-charged batteries sitting there. You get a subscription model. You buy a vehicle without basically the battery, so you subscribe to the battery. And every time the battery is about to run out, through a GPS locator, you can find the nearest kirana wala who has that battery, go in there, take your battery out, put the new battery on, and you're off to go. And why that's so potent is if you look at the pivot to electrical vehicles in Delhi, in the three-wheelers, 95% of three-wheelers have already been have become electrical. More than 50% of two-wheelers, last-mile delivery vehicles, have become electrical. And we have 200 million two-wheelers in India, and yet only 3% of them have been electrical, have pivoted to electrical. So that opportunity is huge. And then finally, we do investments in areas like consumer products. We've invested in companies which make, cosmetics, not using microplastics. And if people in India, because of the sheer size of the population, if every Indian decides to be conscious consumers and focus on the fact that they're not using products that have essentially been manufactured using a traditional fossil fuel power back solution, then you can really impact climate in a big way. So hopefully that answers your question. Try to make it.
Can I just intervene? Prem, could you, here's somebody who's investing in India. That's what I want to ask you is, how would you persuade him to invest in the project that you've written about?
I was planning to, sorry, I keep forgetting this.
Can I just quickly add a question to this?
I apologize, I keep forgetting the mic.
So
And
Prem,
I don't have a loud enough voice.
Prem, how would you persuade him to invest in what you've written about?
I'll come to that, but there's one intermediate stage first that I have to go through.
Okay.
And I will, in fact, come to that, and I'll give you the exact returns.
Yeah, you have to plug yours to him.
You know about it.
I know about it.
I don't need to plug it to him. You know, he is an entrepreneur. He's an investor, and I'm sure I don't have to say a word. He will make his own judgments after he's heard me.
After he's heard you, yeah.
Okay.
So that's what we want to hear.
And I have no doubt that he will agree with
We've
me.
got
but-
Shark Tank happening here all of a sudden.
Right.
All right. May I carry on? Now, I ended by saying that the difference between the developing countries and the rich nations is that they have only one problem, shifting out of fossil fuels. We have two problems, combining that with economic growth. And none of the technologies that are being talked about today in the West are being promoted, as we just heard from Sandip. Are actually going to give you that controlled electrical power, let alone the other two, transport fuels and industrial heat. However, when you start using biomass in combination with solar energy, with solar and wind, this picture changes completely. I will describe that just now to you, and then we will go to individual examples. Because I have something very specific at the end to tell you about a particular project, its costs, its returns, etc., etc. I keep losing my point to start. What did I just say? Where did I start, Madhur? Okay. Wait. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, biomass.
Yeah. Now, the technology by which you can use biomass is biomass gasification. It's not combustion. You don't burn biomass, you gasify it. Gasification is a controlled combustion of biomass in a limited amount of air or pure oxygen. And that air is the amount it can be calibrated to give you different combinations. What you get then is not just carbon dioxide. You get some carbon dioxide, of course, at the end of it, but most of the biomass is converted into carbon monoxide and hydrogen. Now, the carbon monoxide and hydrogen together are known as syngas. Syngas, synthetic gas, syngas is the basic element on which the basic raw material, if you like, on which the entire synthetics industry in the world today works. That is the base from which it starts, carbon monoxide and hydrogen. Here, we're not planning anything very dramatic. What most important thing about syngas is that you can run generators on it, and you have more than enough the synthetic fuel that you get, including with the nitrogen, because it's an air-blown gasification process we're talking about, a very simple process. The fuel, the energy content of the gas is enough to run a generator and to produce electricity. So when you set this up in a village, the immediate thing that happens is it gets 24 hours electricity. I don't know whether you know that in India's 640,000 villages, there is not a single village that gets 24 hours electricity. Did anyone know that? Not a single village in India gets 24 hours electricity. The best that you have is in Punjab today, which is 16 hours, and then what they do is they give you a separate line at night for 8 hours for your pumps and things for electricity for the farming. But that is the best that we have been able to do. If you have biomass gasification giving you electricity, it is constant. You can store it, or you can use it. You can send it by the national electricity grid to any part of the country where it is needed at a particular time. And so what that extra electricity does is it gives you the complete controllability of electricity supply, which today you're getting only from fossil fuels, from coal and sometimes gas-based power.
Okay.
Can I just?
No, I haven't finished yet. Just one moment. I'm almost finished, but give me a moment. That's one. The second product that you get from this is, apart from electricity, is biochar. About 22 to 30%, depending upon the temperature of the gasification, of the biomass is converted into biochar. Now, biochar, when washed and cleaned, it also creates silica because it's ash. When you take the ash away, the biochar from what do you call it, agricultural crop residues, varies from about 88 to 95% pure carbon. It's around 87, 88 with rice straw. It's between 93 and 95% with wheat straw. Now, that is the equivalent of the very highest grade of anthracite coal that you use today in blast furnaces in the steel industry. What is more, it has absolutely no sulfur. One of the problems in the steel industry is you cannot use coal which has even small amounts of sulfur, because unlike the rest of things, any other things that are there in the coal, which turn into slag, sulfur goes into the steel itself, and it gives you a brittle steel at the end. So if there's any sulfur in your steel, it's brittle and it cannot, your bridges will fall down and that kind of thing will happen. So the thing is that you need, this biochar becomes an excellent source for the blast furnaces. More important still, it is an even more excellent source for producing every transport fuel that you need in the world today. I want to ask all of you one question. You all know we had a Second World War. It went on for 5 years. Germany nearly, had it not gone and attacked Russia, would have been ruling the whole of Europe today. But Germany does not have a single oil well. Not one. Tell me, what did they use to run tanks, to fly planes? And no. From coal. They made aviation turbine fuel, diesel, and I can't remember exactly which combination, methanol and ethanol, as in place of gasoline for road transport. Aviation, all three were made from coal, and the thing is that all three can be made with even higher levels of efficiency, and these are proven by among other places at the Institute for Solar Energy and Hydrogen at Stuttgart, which is one of the major institutions in the world. This what you call it, combination gives you much higher quality of energy, and for every ton of biomass that you use oxygen blown gasification, you get 1.1 tons of transport fuels, give or take, depending on which one you're getting. You get today the first plant using municipal solid waste, which is also a form of biomass, to produce aviation turbine fuel is coming up in America today.
That mountainous garbage that one sees when you leave Delhi,
Yeah.
you know, that huge, can that be made into what you're talking about?
Precisely. That garbage can give you, in fact, there are two companies trying to persuade the government at this moment to let them do it. That garbage can be, the trouble is it's lost a lot of its, what do you call it? The mountain has lost most of its methane, its energy in methane. But the fresh garbage you get in Delhi every day, you can be converted in exactly the same way, the organic portion of it, into transport fuels. And the simplest way is a fuel gas in place of SNG, what is it? CNG, that's right. So, that is already being done in many countries and many cities, but we are also going to be doing that in India. So that is one. But you get aviation turbine fuel, you get high-speed diesel, you get the whole works from this. A third point, and I'm going to finish with this and pass on. Biochar has been found in an increasing number of studies. They're very recent studies, by the way. If you convert it into activated carbon, the activated carbon is now being found to be, apart from everything else, it's got millions of medical uses. The activated carbon now has been found is being found to be the best source material for making carbon nanotubes. Now, I don't know how many people even know the term. I didn't know the term till about 2 months ago. Carbon nanotubes are now being used to replace silicon in the chips, in the highest density, highest speed chips in the world today. And it's the present price of the simplest form of carbon nanotubes is $10 million per ton. Now, these are all future developments just from biochar. So you can have industrial heat, you can have transport, and you could have a whole range of the future digital industry will increasingly come to rely upon biochar as an activated carbon. Really, it's not biochar, activated carbon as the base source material. Thank you. Thank you for giving me so much time, by the way.
Thanks, Prem. So has he sold you on the idea?
No, not really.
Okay, please tell us why.
But can we talk about the book? I mean, I want to talk about the book rather than about the science.
Yes, I was going to ask you, so I have read your book 6 months ago and recently before this. So tell us, what are some of the more human aspects of this technology transition, this energy transition that you've touched upon in your book?
So, I've covered the journey of 14 entrepreneurs who have actually displayed the biggest quality of fearlessness because India as a country is a place where failure is frowned upon in a significant way. And when you've actually gone to some of the top institutions and got jobs which pay you a lot of money, and you give that up to pursue a business opportunity that hasn't existed prior, the chances of failure are extremely high. And more importantly, you're actually creating a business which has to be inclusive and affordable in a country like India for it to be sustainable and scalable. Just to give you an example, there's one company that I've covered in my book called NutriFresh. Again, the founders actually got their MBAs. They went and worked at a bank, and then they left because they believed that you could actually deliver profit with purpose. And in order to set up this entire controlled environment agricultural business opportunity, they didn't get the support of their parents, so they borrowed tractors in the middle of arid plateaus outside of Pune, and slept inside containers. And today they've actually created a business which actually supplies fresh produce to some of the largest e-commerce companies in the country. That takes a lot of guts, because in India, and there was a question that I had actually asked a member of a prior panel, why is it that the best companies, Apple, Tesla, Meta, the AI companies, why do they all come out of the United States? Have you ever thought about that? And the reason for that, I've spent a lot of time thinking about it, is that, and by the way, the other thing is that most of those companies, the technologies that are delivered there, the solutions that disrupt, are all done by Indians and Chinese who've left India and left China and gone to the United States. So what is it about the US that allows innovation to thrive, and yet the same people in India are not able to do the same thing here? Absolutely. And the big realization is that we're a nation that frowns on failure. And that is actually what it comes down to. So what I'm really happy about is that these 14 entrepreneurs, and like I said, there's almost 70 or 80 more entrepreneurs that I've profiled, and like I said, that'll be a ongoing series, have displayed fearlessness. And I remember somebody asked yourself, sir, yesterday, what lessons do you bring from the army into corporate world, for the corporate world to actually also be successful? And I was hoping that you would have said fearlessness. You did allude to the fact that risk-taking and not having all the information before you make decisions was what actually makes it for a successful strategy. But I also feel that the best entrepreneurs in India are the ones who've been absolutely fearless. And therefore, as a country, we should not be frowning on failure. If we want our startup ecosystem to grow, we must actually celebrate failure and give people the opportunity to innovate freely. Especially now, because climate change is not going to wait, and neither is the ecosystem, startup ecosystem. So these are the kind of things that I've tried to cover in my book, stories of emotional connect.
Right.
But why have they failed? I'd like to ask you.
Because, so the problem with a lot of these businesses is that these businesses are disruptive, and when you have a disruptive business, you need a lot of capital, because in order to prove the science, before the science starts validating itself, you burn a lot of capital in the business. So let me give you an example. Even in a traditional business, if you have to set up a cement factory, before that cement factory can start producing cement and you can go sell it, you first have to spend the money. Now, if you have to keep spending money before it can actually earn a return, you have to have deep pockets to be able to do that, right? So in a startup ecosystem, unless you have a vibrant capital provider who is willing to say, okay, you know what, you go ahead and do what you have to do best, and I'm willing to back you, irrespective of whether you fail, then those people actually get the courage to do what they have to do.
So you said you're not sold on Prem's idea.
The reason is because it's so complicated to explain to somebody. If I have to explain to someone in one line what this business is, I can't. And usually what happens is when you go to the people who provide me with capital to invest on their behalf, they constantly ask me, what am I investing in with through you? And if I have to explain the entire biochar and biomass opportunity in one line, I don't think I'll be able to do it.
So what would you invest in? If you had to invest your last dollar in a climate tech, let's say, subsector, what would it be?
I think the place where I think there's maximum money-making opportunity, and especially because 25% of all climate emissions in our country happen from that sector, it's got to be electrical mobility. And more so because a very small percentage of the vehicles have been converted into electrical. One small thing that I want to share with you, I know time's up. One policy that the government can change that can cause all of this overnight to get accelerated. You know, Tesla in the United States is looked as a power company. Do you know why? Because there's a dual tariff system for electricity. In India, whether you consume electricity during the day or you consume it at night, you're paying the same electricity price. By simply changing the price of electricity based on the demand and supply for electricity, people in the United States, for example, when they go home, when there is no demand for electricity as much as there is during the day when offices are running, they plug their car in at night, they get their cars to become storage units essentially for electricity. They get power at cheap prices, and then they go back to the office and put the car back on the grid and supply that same electricity that they got at night back to the grid and make a profit on it. Now, if you have 10,000 cars like that as Tesla, and you own the power, you become a power company essentially. So the point is that one simple change like that in India, changing the electricity tariff structure, can make a huge difference, because people will say, अब तो मेरे को पैसा बनेगा मेरी इलेक्ट्रिकल व्हीकल गाड़ी खरीदने से, तो मैं गाड़ी खरीदूंगा क्योंकि मेरे को तो रात को इलेक्ट्रिसिटी चीप मुफ्त में मिलती है, चीप प्राइस में मिलती है, ऑफिस में जाके मैं अपने लगा के जो भी प्राइस मैंने अपफ्रंट पे करी है उसमें से मेरे को वापस थोड़ा सा पैसा मिल जाएगा. So that will cause that transition to happen. So I'm just saying that areas like this become much more attractive to an investor.
Well, can I just sort of tell you a little bit more about this gasification and the role that biomass can play? Because I think that it's probably time to give you a few straight facts. There is a project coming up. There is the project coming up. Its cost is 5.1 crores. It will produce, it's in Punjab, by the way. It will produce electricity and sell it to the national grid, and the minimum price at this moment, at the present, the minimum there are fluctuatory prices in the national electricity grid, depending on time and need. But at the lowest prices, the return is 80 lakhs per year. Second,
80 lakhs on 5.1 crore.
On 5 point. Wait, that's the first product. Okay. The biochar that you get from this, in this particular case, the biomass that the village generates is about 60,000 tons per year. The biochar, therefore, that you get from this is about between 22 and 25,000 tons. 22 and 25,000 tons of biochar at this, today. When you convert it into activated carbon, it comes to about 15,000 tons.
Prem, I think that might be too much. Too much technicality, too many technical details for this audience.
Allow me to finish. I've allowed him.
I'm sorry.
I'm very sorry. May I just finish? This is the most important single
it
project
is. I
in the
agree.
world.
It's
Will you please allow me to finish?
The single most important project in the world.
Will you? You break my chain of thought.
Yes, and you've been breaking my question flow. So may I please request you to go up? I'm the moderator here.
Not until
I request you.
Not until I finish what I was saying. Just please. You cannot do this.
I'm afraid I will allow you to carry on moderating the rest of the session in that case, Prem.
Fair
okay, thank you very much. Thanks very much, Sandeep. Thank you, Rahul.
Thank you.
Let me, I'm very sorry about this, but I was just about to finish what I was going to say.
Okay, Prem, carry on.
Yeah. Rahul, would you take over?
Yeah. No, just very briefly.
Yeah.
Now, very briefly.
The current price in the market of activated carbon is 50,000 rupees per ton, and you're producing 22 to 25,000 tons. Work that out. Overall returns on just these two products is going to be between 40 and 55% per annum on the investment. Now, one last point. This is only the first project. We are not going beyond that at this stage, but there's one last thing. That electricity can run a cold storage in every village. That cold storage will treble the income of horticulture farmers. Don't forget that. They are the worst affected today. They get 1/10, sometimes 1/15 of the table price of their products. Thank you.
Also, what Prem did not mention, the pollution that we have over Delhi and that region, that will become substantially less because you're using the stubble that is currently being burnt. Isn't that another point?
May I say one more thing? The Punjab, getting permissions and things, the Punjab government, 13 permissions for this have been obtained in 4 weeks. That's how fast the government is doing this project.
On that note, thank you, sir.
Sandip, are you sold on that idea or not?
Think about it.
Think about it. Okay. Any questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, housekeeping, please stand up, give your name, keep the question brief. Sir.
I just have 2 points. One for his job. There's already 3 plants running, making biochar. The first one is in Varanasi, which has been made in 2023. The product is called green coal, not biochar. And the second one is getting ready, and its first stage is over in Noida. Third one I'm not remembering where it is, but it's somewhere in Rajasthan. So lots of things are happening as far as using what is principal corporations finding difficult to dispose, collect and dispose is being converted into energy. Of course, the world leaders are in Switzerland and Sweden where they are having wealth from waste. I got a point to Rahul on this tariff system. A smart meter project by which more than 10 lakhs of collections are already being given. They have this provision to make tariff rates different for different time of the day or night.
Your point. That was my point.
It is already there. It has been left to the local distribution company, DISCOMs, to introduce that. I understand that this will get introduced from coming 1st April, the new financial year. But things are already being done through smart meter made in India. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Brief question.
Yeah, on a lighter note, can we switch from the greenhouse emissions to the white house emissions, the mercurial Donald Trump that we have? And getting my question into the context is that you said, and that's probably the worst case in the world, that Indians, and we've been some of the smartest people in R&D, and I think a major chunk of startups do come from us. I mean, 37% of the CEOs are in. I can't imagine, America, Lockheed Martin, or Shell, or whatever you name it. So now that Donald Trump is tightening the screws up, and he's up in a self-destruction mode, he's clubbing the, he's lessening down the EB1s and funding for research. So do you think our government is looking back, working on the reverse brain drain, A1 and B? If they are, then what could be the most conducive environment? Because capital is going to chase them once the intellectuals do come here. So that's my pointed question to you. Thank you.
Whatever I say, obviously, is my own opinion. I don't think there is a standard answer to this. I don't think that Donald Trump is essentially indiscriminately stopping immigration. All he's saying is you need to come through the front door. And if you come through the front door, then the United States welcomes you, right? Now, as far as, that's right. He is. Because there are a lot of US universities that were effectively, because I also am an academic, I teach at a leading US university. There were no quotas being put aside for US students. And therefore, what was happening was on pure meritocracy when students were applying to the US schools, clearly the Asians were dominating the incoming pool at the top universities. Now, what that also means is that there are lesser jobs for the Americans, right? So they are trying to effectively increase employment statistics in the US. And fair enough. I mean, if you had in India a lot of foreigners coming and taking our jobs away, I'm sure we would as a country also do stuff to ensure that our jobs are given to our own people. Point number one, I'll just try and finish your question first. The second thing on the issue of EB5 and H1B, I think India will actually benefit significantly because of the fact that a lot of Indian parents who now don't see an opportunity for their kids to stay back in the United States post their graduation beyond the 3 years that they have, the OPT that they have, will therefore be forced to come back to India. And so the point is that there are world-class universities now being set up in India too. And so if you can actually study in India at half the cost or maybe 25% of the cost and work at an international company that has actually set up operations in India, then why would you go abroad to study? You can actually get a job at Goldman Sachs for the same amount of money that somebody graduating from Columbia or Stanford can get in the US, but now you don't have to leave India to do that, and you can go to an Indian school of business and get an MBA, which is affiliated with Wharton or Kellogg, and you don't have to go and spend $300,000 at Wharton and Kellogg to get that degree. So that...
I mean, is there enough centers to accommodate? Because, you know, we're still a rudimentary kind of an economy. We don't have the infrastructure to facilitate R&D. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, so that's true. So science is obviously going to be a question mark, but as far as STEM education, right? But if you look at, say, for example, business schools, if you look at management education, I don't think that there is a compelling reason for anyone now to leave India and go abroad to study. Even though I did my MBA abroad, I would actually strongly state that unless there is a compelling opportunity where you get a full scholarship to go to Harvard or Cornell, for 30 lakhs you can go to an ISB and get an MBA taught by the same professors who got their PhDs in the United States, and you can still get hired at Goldman Sachs in India. It makes no sense for you to go to the United States. So
Prem, you wanted to say something on that?
Yes, I wanted to tell you a little bit more about the economics of this project, which is the employment side. You know that we have 83% of the people between 16 and 30 in our country are unemployed. The labor force participation ratio, which is the ratio, the proportion of the people between 16 and 60 who have jobs, is now only 40%. And 60%, you know, no country has 100%. You know, European Union, 63 to 65% is the norm. But the point is, we had got to 57% in 2006, 2007. We dropped to 40%. That means that 60% of the labor force does not have any work. The most important thing about village-based biomass gasification and the cold storage and secondary things that you put up with after it is that it'll create a minimum of 30 to 40 jobs per village. There are 500,000 villages which are large enough in the country to have to put up this kind of a system. And if you know the employment impact of this will in fact greatly eliminate most of the problems that the Indian government is facing today, or for that matter the rest of the world, because unemployment today is the central issue all over the world, particularly in the developing countries. So this is one side of the thing that employment takes place. There are several other benefits. I think that these are quite enough for me, and there's much more in the book. Please, if you're interested, go ahead and have a look at it. I will stop here. Thank you very much.
On that note, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. On that note, thank you very much, sir. I would want to thank Sandip Ji. Sandeep, thank you for the session. Really interesting. Prem Shankar Jha ji, thanks for your invaluable insights. And Rahul, thank you for being on the stage. We have a small closing ceremony for all the people who have sort of brought all of us together. I would request if you can stay in there. Rahul, would you want to join me here?